Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of scaleUP.
AI is a big buzzword. Do I let my employees start using ChatGPT?
There was, like you just said, there were so many options.
We want to place them in an area which there was no value this time last year, but this time next year, there will be huge amounts of value.
You still have to do the work.
I just don't have time.
I thought I got it to a certain point.
Terminated.
It wasn't terminated.
20% of the problems are probably 80% of the volume.
Do you think it's possible today?
It has to be awesome.
That's the reason why I don't think it's ready.
Let me talk to somebody. That's not what I need. Stop sending me this random article.
And then they just learn, they just develop their own language, and then before you know, it's like, what is this? They're speaking to each other in binary now. scaleUP, the podcast for driving growth in your MSP, delivered by industry experts. Today, of course, I'm joined with Darren and our good friend Bobby from Fred. I am Captain Morgan, and we're going to be talking about whether you still need people in your service desk.
Hi, Bobby. Welcome to the podcast. So for our viewers that maybe don't know about you and Fred, a little bit about your journey. You know, how have you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Darren. Hey, Morgan. Good to be hanging out. I work with Thread. We are an AI service desk platform for MSPs. I first started working for MSPs pretty quick out of college. I was selling refurbished IT hardware. It was my first sales job. Learned to build servers and was literally selling parts over AIM. And it was way too late to be using AIM at that point. I'm not super young, but it was too late. But I got to kind of see what a piece of the MSP business looked like. Fast forward a few years, and I met the Lion Guard team very early on in their journey and got to be a part of what they were doing for 4 years. And yeah, I mean, really, I love helping people do really cool stuff. And MSPs are such an important part of what's happening across the world of helping small and medium business be successful. And they're so underwater in a lot of areas. And that's not a knock on them. There's just so much to do, right? And so I love this space because everyone's just trying to help. And we can all make some money along the way, the MSPs, the vendors, so on and so forth. But I'm very excited about what I get to be a part of at Thread with the AI service desk and automation, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There's always so much to do in an MSP, and typically the owner got going because maybe he was good at fixing things, and now he's got all these different areas that he's got to learn about that he never even realised was going to be part of his role, really. Yeah. I think and then you've got technology that's moving so rapidly, and you've got to try and juggle all of this. So I think a great part for us to start today is a big buzzword in the MSP world is, how are we going to embrace this AI? What is this AI? And I think not everyone, but a lot of the owners, probably because they are technically driven, they've come from a technical era, first thing they look at is service desk. Yeah. So how can we create a tier 1 role using AI? How can I reduce my costs, but still keep the same experience?
Yeah, and I think too, talking about the help that a lot of people can provide to MSPs and the MSPs are looking for, there's so much going on, and AI is a big buzzword. Do I let my employees start using ChatGPT? Do I need to go build out my own LLM? Everything in between. And I think what is really exciting about the opportunity that we have as vendors that work with MSPs is to be able to help there and have some opinions. And, Halo's doing some really cool stuff in the AI world. But I think thinking about sure, I can reset a password with AI, or I can simulate phishing training, but can I actually have a level 1 technician, and whether it's their whole role, their role plus a piece of their role, what does that look like today? What does that look like a year from now, 5 years from now? It's a big conversation.
And do you think it's possible today?
I think it is possible today. I think it's hard. I don't think an MSP is behind today if they're not automating the level 1 role. I think an MSP that's doing that is super far ahead right now. But also things are moving quickly, right? In 3 months, 6 months, that may be the standard. It's probably not 3 months where every MSP is automating level 1 help desk. But if you think about the volume of MSP tickets, in any business, 20% of the problems are probably 80% of the volume, right? And so when you talk about level 1 help desk, maybe it's not automating every single thing a level 1 tech does, but if you can automate 20% of the type of work, And that takes a massive piece of the volume. And you have 10 level 1 techs, you start to do the math. It's like, okay, what does it mean to automate a level 1 tech? Maybe it doesn't have to be everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I totally agree that we're still in the early phases of the adoption of this new technology. And while there's great benefit, it's okay to not have AI completely replace level 1 right now, but you can quite easily see how it could do in the future. And yeah, interesting you say there, the 20% of tickets or 80% of tickets are actually 20% of the problem, the Pareto distribution that we talk about here at Halo as well. And so, when talking about automating perhaps just some part of level 1, what do you think the actual steps are that an MSP needs to follow?
Yeah, where'd you start?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, looking at those things, I think like password resets, user onboarding, offboarding. Like if you Google like MSP AI, you'll probably find onboarding and offboarding tools pretty quickly. And I think that if you want to say like, I want things to be done end to end, like I would like a few use cases where I can have zero touch ticket closure, then I think most people know where to start is how to do it. But I think where people are getting the most value right now is more in the triage world of saying like, you either have dispatchers doing triage, or maybe you're really proud that you don't have dispatchers. You still have to do the work, right? It's not like you don't have to dispatch just because you don't have dispatchers. That probably just means level 1s are doing dispatch. And so if you can get the priority, the category, maybe the title of the ticket, maybe even do a little back and forth with the end user, and then you have that triage, then it's not zero touch ticket closure. But if you just look at the work that a technician's doing, that's a good bit of...
Yeah, I think what I see as well, a lot of people talk about dispatch role, but actually what we see is most people don't have a dispatch role. Yeah. And what they're seeing is an outcome, but they don't realize it's because no dispatcher. So what they're seeing as an outcome is the data is they can't use it because it's not got the right subject line, it's not got the right categorization. Yeah. They're getting customer feedback because they're too slow, when actually it's the wrong priority. It's not that they're too slow, it's just that it wasn't actually categorized correctly in the priority world as far as impact and urgency. Sure. So I think as an MSP, you could actually look at it and say, we haven't got that role. Is that the first thing we do to actually increase the experience that we're delivering and the data that I get?
Yeah, I think so. Like if I'm an MSP and I'm like, just tell me where to start. I don't think it's buying ChatGPT for my whole company. Like what's something that can actually happen on my service desk? Just have all your tickets prioritized. Like that's such low-hanging fruit. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. I think we do it pretty well at Thread, so I'm a little biased, but there's a lot of vendors that can help you with that. The outcomes are awesome. Like no one has to click this button anymore. Every single ticket, you have to comprehend what's happening and you have to click some buttons. Just take that off the table. And the other thing that we find, kind of to your point, when we've dug into this, we found dispatchers are typically about 60% accurate on the category of the ticket. So then you start to think about what's the impact of that. Even if you have a dispatcher, they're super important to your business, but they're probably the most entry level. They probably want to get out of the job, right? They want to move to level 1, but you absolutely have to have this role because you created it. So I could go on about that for a long time. It's like the least exciting thing, but I think it's the thing that we have today. Like super easy is you just do that.
I think when we're talking about changes like this, though, the main thing I always get back is we don't have time. I'm sure you hear that when you're saying, well, you need to do it this way in the system. They're like, well, we haven't got time. Yeah. We haven't got time to do that. Yeah. So when you're looking at it now, and I've been doing a bit of work on this, there was, like you just said, there are so many options, so many vendors that say they can do it, and then so many different ways of doing it. I just don't have time.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that goes on the vendor. Like, how can we make it super easy to have end-to-end use cases? And that doesn't have to be end-to-end the full life cycle of a ticket, but if you're saying that you write time entries for an MSP, if they have to go code that and then handle the security of the AI and pay for the tokens themselves and all those things, it's not that that's not really helpful, but the MSP that's too busy to go do the work probably would rather just have a button or a clear experience where it's like, when I use Amazon, it's really straightforward, right? I don't have to go do anything technical, and that's obviously an end user tool. But I think we need to do more of that in the AI space, to just make it really simple, really straightforward. We're not boiling the ocean today, but the outcomes are clear.
You touched on an interesting point there about sort of end-to-end use cases and zero-touch ticket closure. I'm wondering how you think the end user experience plays into this. I know we've had conversations in the past about this, and I just want to get your take on it. If you think that end users will actually like that, and if we do move to this world where the service desk is completely automated, how does an MSP differentiate themselves in the market?
Yeah, I think there's two amazing questions there. Let's start with the first one. What's the experience and like? How are they actually going to embrace it?
Yeah, it has to be awesome, right? If it's not an awesome experience, then they're not going to use it. And then why did you build all of this stuff? And I think that that's where a lot of automation, you get into the RPA world, the tech has to go choose to use that. Like they still have to go do all the back and forth with the customer. And I think that's how MSPs are trying to kind of protect that, is like, hey, we're not going to change the end user experience. They're not even going to know that we're doing this stuff on the back end. That's an easier way to get started, but there's a lot of challenges there. If you do take it customer facing, massive opportunity to get to that zero touch or to handle like the triage piece of it. I mean, in short, I think it just has to be a beautiful experience. It has to work really well. Right before this, we were talking about chatbots a little bit. Like if you think it's a chatbot, that's just a bad word, right? Like that's going to be a bad experience of like, let me talk to somebody. That's not what I need. Stop sending me this random article. Like you're clicking no, you can't get through to anybody. Maybe you get a gift card out of it. That's the best case for a chatbot, right? So it can't be that. It has to be really simple. It has to be where the end user is working. And they have to be able to dictate to a degree what type of support they're getting. If they're like, no, I don't want this to be automated. I need to be able to talk to somebody. Like that's where the human component that is so important with an MSP like has to still be there when it's appropriate and when the end user needs it or when it's helpful for the MSP. Like it can't be hard coded where like if we're automating, then humans are never involved and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean that's your problem, isn't it? You look at the chatbots and you're going around in circles because you've not asked the specific word that it's looking for. How do you get that? I when you mentioned earlier, like, is it ready for it today? That's the reason why I don't think it's ready. I don't think it's ready because it doesn't understand where you're trying to take it enough. And also, we've had conversations before, Morgan, about you ask it the same question twice and you get two different answers. Well, when you're on a support desk, that end user is going to say, oh, I rung up yesterday and had this problem, you told me this. Now you're telling me it's this. How do you work that?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we're handling that at Thread is we have the AI doing very basic back and forth triage. We tell it, don't suggest any solutions. Just ask the questions when did it happen? How many people is it affecting? Why, do you have any idea why your Wi-Fi is slow? Those types of things. And then when we get beyond that, it's not giving it the whole LLM model to say like, go search everything. I think that's where it gives different answers and it can make mistakes. We say more of, if it's a password reset, here's a workflow. But it's a workflow that's AI empowered. So it's a little less exciting because you're saying this is exactly how we want the password reset to happen. It's still conversational, but it's not going to be able to get outside of that workflow. So that's like a place where Thread takes an opinion of, we're going to make it really easy to use. We're not going to boil the ocean, but now you can feel confident saying for password resets, new user onboarding, and whatever those things are, maybe telling someone how to download email on their phone. You can feel good about it because the AI only has access to a few things for that workflow. So I think that's a good way to start. You definitely don't want to say, hey, ChatGPT, like do your best to solve these answers. Because a lot of times it'll be right. But if it's wrong 10% of the time, which is generous, then it's not going to be very good for your service desk, right?
Yeah. And then to Morgan's second question about, if we do this and customers are going to catch on to us doing this, well, then they're going to say, well, okay, then I'll pay you 50% of the price because it's no longer costing you that. Or I'm going to go somewhere else because what's your value? What's your value if I can just go and ask someone to do it for me?
I think in the short term, it may actually even be a premium to say working with this is so much better than any experience I've had. Like I don't have to wait for things to be triaged. I don't have to schedule a call. Like I'm able to just get help. This automation's so cool and so helpful. I think it's going to get a little more commoditized when a lot of MSPs are doing it. And MSPs are able to charge less. When some MSPs start charging less for the service because they have automated their level 1 technicians and dispatchers, then I think there's going to be a forcing function on, well, I can also get this great automated experience at this other MSP for a third of the price. And then you have to think about the higher value. Today, I think you can actually charge premium for it. That may be a hot take, but I think if it's an awesome experience, I think people are actually going to prefer that.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that will be the case long term. I have a suspicion that a value proposition of MSPs in the future will be we actually have people on the other end of a phone. It will be you're speaking to a human, and that will be the premium.
Well, you're seeing banks do that, aren't you? Lots of high street banks are shutting shop, and there's a certain bank that's saying we're not shutting shop.
Yes, yeah,
It's still here. You can still speak to the human.
Yeah, I think it'll be a balance. I don't think it's going to be like we're like a human-only MSP, like everything you do with us is human. But we have humans that monitor all of this. And when it's helpful for us to get involved or when you want us to get involved, we're here. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's different line items. Maybe that's just the thesis of the MSP. But I do think, like, what does that mean for the future? It probably means that MSPs will be helping their end users with AI and automation. And how do you have an agent for HR and for sales and every single department in this end user? Like, that's where there's huge opportunity for the MSPs. The average SMB is not going to want to go build their own AI agents for everything that they need. I guess that's the future of the MSP.
absolutely. With something that is so valuable in an MSP is their technical ability and their ability to transfer that information. And of course, with this new technology, being able to consult on it and being able to provide professional services for implementation and use cases for the SMB is something that it's an emerging market almost.
So then does the MSP need to hire people for that? Is it like now I have my AI super team that goes in and can do all this stuff custom?
That's a great question. And I think that relates to a previous session that we did, Darren, where I don't think that they might have to hire, but I would say that you should repurpose some of those roles within the business. We're talking about replacing the dispatch role, automating the dispatch role, ultimately automating level 1 support. Well, we don't want to lose those people. They are valuable to the business. They're part of the culture.
They're technical.
Yeah, exactly. But we want to place them in an area which there was no value this time last year, but this time next year, there will be huge amounts of value.
Yeah, I mean, most MSPs that I talk to are definitely talking about we need business analysts. We need people to do that task you just talked about, where you're going in, looking at the processes within that SME and saying, actually, how can we make this more efficient? How can we add different agents or whatever, or AI into these processes to make it better? Yeah. And that's going to be the value proposition rather than the support. The support is almost the permission to play. The value we bring is enhancing your business.
Yeah. I think the few MSPs that are going down to that level and making agents for end users today do have those superheroes, and they're literally building it from scratch. But I think most MSPs, that's going to be more on the vendor side supporting that. So, okay, you've identified that you want an agentic sales piece that this end user can use. I probably have a few vendors that can help me deploy that, and it's been productized. And now I put their data in it and it reads it and whatever. But I think that's where the MSP is not going to need a bunch of superheroes if great vendors can help productize that end user. Sell through has always been a thing in this place. Like there will be MDF funds around that and all those types of things to get the agentic to the end users.
So one thing that's popped into my head then, when we're talking about replacing these dispatch roles and tier 1 roles, I've got some good friends that are in the building industry, and one of the problems they have is there's nobody coming into the building industry now. There's no apprenticeships because the health and safety has stopped apprenticeships because you're no longer odd carriers going up ladders because you're not allowed to carry up a ladder anymore. So a forklift does that. So you've got nobody coming into the bricklaying trade because nobody's actually labouring on a bricklayer. Yeah. When we talk about that in our industry, how are we going to bring people along into a tier 2 role? Because there isn't the starter of, okay, I've hired you from some sort of customer service role. Maybe it's a supermarket. And you're going to be dispatcher for a year. Then after a dispatcher, we'll do tier 1 for 2 years. Then we'll do tier 3. Halo are massive around the apprenticeship world. How are we going to bring these graduates through the roles that don't exist anymore?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. I mean, I think one, you need people that know how to do the work. If you're automating your level 1 help desk, you don't want to get to a point in your business where no one knows how to actually do that. So if the automation doesn't work or someone needs to jump in, it's like, well, we've been automating that for 3 years. I don't remember how to do that process. So you do want to make sure that you keep up your expertise and some knowledge there. And obviously you need to manage the AI. I think as far as training those people on your team, maybe that's a software piece too. Empath is a really cool product that is around creating training materials for MSPs. Maybe that's part of the future is, hey, when I hire a level 2 tech, I'm really hiring an apprentice, and I'm just going to point them in Empath for 3 months, and like they're going to go through a training, and I'm going to pay for that and think about just leveling that person up. Certainly need to be very thoughtful about it. You can't not do it, right? Then you're not going to have those level 2 techs for the future.
But I guess, I mean, there is always an entry point, right? So we're just moving the goalpost ever so slightly. People are going to have to come in perhaps with zero knowledge, and they're going to have to go from zero to something. And what we're talking about here is just slightly advancing that initial step. And, of course, with the emergence of AI, the importance of documentation is becoming more and more prevalent, because a lot of these AI agents are leveraging the existing documentation that you have within the MSP. So I think that taking some of your more experienced staff members and putting them more towards documentation and, creating the materials that you can provide both to the AI to learn and to your new starters to give them that base knowledge. And then, of course, the other piece is around it's a different set of skills that people are learning as they're coming into the MSP now. So, for example, there may well be the emergence of an entire automation department within an MSP. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be these different skill sets that are changing. And I agree with you, Morgan, that I think there's just a different entry point. There's maybe even different entry points to different roles that even don't exist nowadays. Yeah. You'll still be good to take on those people and take them through a journey. I think it just needs to be structured differently. Another thing that just popped into my head there, because you talked about documentation and processes, that can be really low maturity in an MSP. So, in your experience, Bobby, when you're taking on a brand new partner, is that actually an impact that you've got to address? When you're saying we're going to get this thing to do this task, and somebody says, well, I don't actually know, A, what that task is, or actually, I've got 100 customers and I didn't realize it, but we do it 100 different ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think when going back to like triage, like that's the most simple place to start. A lot of MSPs are like, well, I can't do that because that's not documented well, or I don't know how, or if I train on my previous tickets, like we don't have type and subtype and those things set right. There's opportunities there to just use best practices. Like we mentioned, dispatchers are like 60% accurate. We just use ITIL best practices, and then we let the MSP tweak it a little bit. And we find that is super accurate. So I think there's an opportunity there to say, hey, here's how onboarding should work. Scalable is experts in how to do these things, and we have the scalable playbook on this process. And if you're outside of this process, here's how you can tweak those things and make it really easy. If it's 100 different ways for 100 customers, I think that's still just a UX piece of it, is how do I easily tweak an agentic workflow or whatever it is to say, for this customer, do this, for this customer, do this. And you're not getting into the code and you're not creating a new AI model for each one. I don't think that's that hard. Obviously, it's more work to set up 100 different workflows than one, but that's on the MSP. If that's their process, we as vendors can help do that.
And how do we handle process change? How do we get the team on board and aligned with all of these monumental changes that are frankly happening at lightning pace?
Yeah, the places where I've seen it work best is when it's a vision from the CEO. When leadership comes in and says, hey, this is the future of the business. I get that we have a service desk that works really well. I think that's the hardest part, is like, I'm a service desk manager and my service desk is awesome. Why would I do this? Like, I could, I'm not buying IBM. I could lose my job. Like, everything's going to go poorly. But if the leadership comes in and they're like, that's not our job anymore, we're changing the way we do this, and then making it easy to start implementing those changes if the vendor, whoever, has processes around those things. I think that's the biggest piece. When is a service desk manager who's excited and then they're selling their leadership, and that, I don't think that goes very well. So I think it has to be the vision of the people at the top.
So that's how you do it inside your business. How do you take your existing customers on a journey to do it?
For the MSP's customers?
Yeah. So these customers have been with me 20 years. Yeah. They are used to ringing, getting me. I do something, give it to my techs, they do something, everyone's happy. How do you take them on this journey of that's not going to be possible anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think at Thread, we talk a lot about, because we've traditionally been a chat tool, and chat's scary, and people think it's going to be a worse experience. We talk a lot about end users just want to be supported. Like, they don't have to have instant support. They don't have to get someone on the phone. A lot of them don't actually prefer to pick up the phone. That's just the way that they can get the best experience. So if you can say, look how cool this is. You need this type of help, which I can see you've asked us for this type of thing 50 times in the last year. Now you go in and you click this button and look how helpful that is. And then you can always say, like, I want to talk to Billy, or I want a technician to jump in with me. Like, if you have that process where it's not hardcore, just separating, which I think MSPs will, they'll be able to have technicians jump in. Then I think it's just focusing on the outcome and the experience that the end user is going to have.
Is that actually possible today? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. Is it actually possible to code something where the end user can dictate we jump out of this? Like, I want to, or do they just do what I do when I try and get hold of someone? I just say no. Until he goes, I give up.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like the chat bot, which I think is a bad word, right? I think that's where the agentic piece comes in. Like with Thread, we have agentic customer-facing AI, and you're going through the path of onboarding a new user, and then you say, oh, actually, I need to reset a password. I don't know why an end user would do that, but the agent can pick that up, and they'll say, okay, great, now I'm going through this other process. Or it'll say, let me get a technician for you. And then in the interface for the technician, they see like, oh, I need to jump in to this specific ticket. It's certainly possible today. There's some caveats, and there's not a lot of easy ways for MSPs to do it. But yeah, I mean, at Thread, if the end user is asking a question and says that they want to talk to a technician, we can certainly do that.
Moving on sort of in the future, we touched on it a little bit, but, you know, where do we think this is going? You know, we fast forward, which is quite an hard thing to do, I think, because to your point, Morgan, this is running very, very fast. But, you know, where do we actually think this is going? What if I was a business owner and I was looking at a 2-year, 3-year plan, how am I trying to build this in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we hit on a little bit of the agentic pieces being customer facing, repurposing your technicians to do better work, to do more fun work, hopefully helping your end users with agentic sales tools or whatever those things are. I think that's going to be a lot more fun than being a level 1 technician. And I think you just start on that path. You say, hey, I want 20% of my revenue to be from AI tools I'm selling to my end users 3 years from now. What do we do between now and then? Well, I probably need to start by automating a lot of the level 1 technician work, so I don't have to double the size of my team to be able to do this. One thing I heard you say on a previous podcast, Darren, was can an MSP get the 600 endpoints per technician?
Yeah.
And I think, yes. Like, I think that is where this goes. If you can get to 600, 800 endpoints per technician, that can't mean technicians are just running ragged, right? It means you're able to provide.
Yeah, you have to provide the same experience.
Yeah.
But,
exactly.
You know, that's definitely a point that I've heard a lot. You know, how can we increase this, you know, either ticket per engineer or endpoints per engineer? How can we double that?
Yeah. But I think if you set a goal like that, we want 20% of our revenue to be from AI and work backwards. Maybe 20% is not the right answer, but if you have that type of vision, then you can work backwards on how to get there. That's one suggestion. What do you guys think?
It's a great question. I can see just the general population just moving towards using AI for everything. You know, like you walk around Halo House and people are on ChatGPT all the time. If it's like amending HTML or just a general question, and this is broadly true. And I think that the SMBs will demand some form of AI implementation into their business. So being the technical expert and the safeguard around those customers, it's going to be the MSP that is going to have the responsibility to train and secure these AI models for their customers, and they'll do that by finding the right vendors that can provide that technology in the right way. But yeah, I can imagine that it's going to start off exactly as you mentioned, and it's kind of the process that Halo is following as well. So you start off with the low-hanging fruit. So we talk about triage, a lot of back-end processes that can be automated will be automated to the point where we're going to get to a point where the service desk they're just reading the initial request, clicking a button to fire the automation, and then, leaving it. From there, it's going to be the end user that clicks the button. From there, it's going to be the end user that wants their customers to have that same experience. They're not going to have the best idea as to how it all works under the hood from the MSP side. So that's where they're going to require the consultation and the professional services and the management of these AI tools.
Yeah, and the security. I think that was a great point. And helping the MSP be confident about the security side of it, and then the end user, like that's where a ton of the value is going to be.
Yeah.
I'm probably a little bit more controversial. So I think we're a little bit in our own bubble.
Yeah.
And because we live in the technical world, we're excited by this. I think we think that everybody else in the outside world is at the same level of adoption as we are, when actually it's not. So I think there's a lot of education and opening people's eyes to the possibilities before we can even start offering services. I think I've seen it before with, you mentioned chatbot earlier. Everyone raved about chatbot, but it was a very low adoption rate because actually the experience wasn't there, and the external customers weren't at the same level as we are in that level of knowledge. You talk about ChatGPT, it's widely used in Halo. I would say it's widely used in my business as well, but that's sort of a bubble. We're hiring technical people with technical ability and technical excitement about, I can prompt this to do this and understand this and do this. And where you've got, Bill that's a pipe bender that's got 20 engineers doing plumbing work, probably doesn't even know the word ChatGPT or AI. Yeah. So I think there's definitely, we have to get on this train and we have to see how it's going to work for us, and we have to see how it works for our customer base. Yeah. I see a lot of people adopting things. I love peer groups. I think they're a massive, massive place you should be if you're not already. But one of the things you've got to learn very quickly is you can't just copy and paste to what somebody else is doing, because they could be on a different part of their journey, or even size of their journey, or even their customer base can be different to you. And that service doesn't match your customer base. So I think you've got to look at, where are my customers on this journey? How are they going to adopt this? What type of experience do they want?
Yeah.
And I think for lots of MSPs, it will be different.
Yeah.
And they'll be on a different pathway and timeline. I think often we see what the outside world is, but actually we're in a bubble and we don't really see what the outside world looks like.
Yeah. That just made me think about, like, MSPs should have an ideal customer profile. Should is a maybe too strong of a word, but I think it's helpful and it really benefits an MSP to say, I work with dentists, or I work with real estate or theater. I was talking to someone who works with an MSP that just does theater. Now you're able to be very specific on the types of software and who your customers are. I think that's going to make the sell through AI to the end user a lot more helpful too. To say, hey, we know all the dental software. Here's an agent. You don't have to really know AI, but look at how cool this is when you click these buttons and it helps you with the software that we already know that you use. I think productizing those things versus saying, like, tell us what you want from AI. Like, tell us what your problems are and let's come up with something from scratch. I don't think that's going to work very well. But if you can have a tight ICP and a good productized AI tool to bring to your end user, I think that's going to make a big impact and probably bridge some of that gap of, like, we are in our bubble. How do we make it really easy for people outside of that bubble to have an outcome?
Yeah, because you mentioned Amazon earlier, and I always look at Apple. They've been very good at not talking about, for instance, the AI. What they're talking about is the experience you're going to have with us once you're in this world. The experience is going to look like this, or we're going to make it easier to do this business.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you don't have to know anything about AI. You don't have to train on it. You just say, oh, Amazon can help me do this right here. So I think that's going to be very cool.
I think as business owners, one of the things we're looking at here is, what's the ROI? I've had lots of conversations with the AI vendors to talk about ROI, especially when we're looking at the size of the MSP. Is there a level that MSPs have to be before they're going to get ROI. Can you sort of talk to any sort of ROI or success really of, to put it into context of, like we talked about time, how much time should I spend on this because I know I'm going to get this reward?
Yeah. I mean, Triage is like the place I always go back to right out of the box. Like if you're not doing anything, you should do it. The ROI, if you can do auto triage well, is huge. We have an MSP we work with. They have dozens, but I think about 60 technicians, and they have they had 6 dispatchers. They were able to repurpose 3 of them right away. And then the others became more of AI managers and were able to get into other things. But I mean, that's a very fast ROI. Obviously, that's a large MSP, but getting into, if I don't have to click these buttons anymore and I don't have to process in my brain of what priority and what category things are, what impact does that make? How much time is my team spending? So I think that is like the lowest hanging fruit. And that's where everyone should start if you're not doing that. If you're doing that, and then you're able to get into zero touch ticket closures. And when someone asks these questions that they really just could have Googled, what does it look like for those tickets to just close? And then if it's new user onboarding and password resets, we have another partner of ours, an MSP that we work with. They have gone full bore with the customer facing agentic experience through chat and through email. They have seen a 36% decrease in time to resolution with the agentic customer facing side. And that's on top of chat and auto triage and those things already. They were using our tool and seeing a great return for just those pieces. When they put agentic on top of that, they've seen a 36% decrease.
Wow. And I mean, that's fantastic. But to throw a spanner in the works, I suppose, how can you actually trust that this new technology is doing what you hope it is? Because as Darren mentioned, this new technology is semi-random. All it's doing is it's predicting the next token to provide, but it doesn't have any awareness, any understanding of the problem at hand. So I suppose the question is, how can you trust AI in your business before you see the results that you're hoping for?
Yeah. I mean, I think the simplest answer is you should test it a lot and see if the outcomes are good, right? And then how do you know if the outcomes are going to be good and you can rely on them? I think it's being very narrow on, this is what this workflow can do. I have a prompt for this question and a prompt for this question. And if this happens, then go into this. And it's not quite like I click a button and it's just doing all the work. It's like the future state of AI. I think the way to use it today is, for a password reset, I want to know these 3 things. And so when someone says password reset, then ask this question, and that's mandatory. And then ask this question, that one's not mandatory. And then once that happens, do I send an internal note to the team? Do I send a response to the end user? Do I kick it off to an automation tool? But putting those guardrails on the AI to say, like, I'm not just asking ChatGPT, how do I reset a password? And it's just I think that's where the randomness gets crazy, when it's just like, it has a whole LLM to go use, then it's going to be really different every time.
So isn't that a bit like, so I get really a bit frustrated with people, now the buzzword is AI, so now everything's called AI. It's a bit like cloud. Everything's now called cloud, but actually POP3 email's been out since I started IT, and now it's called cloud. But actually, so are we actually saying AI is just a workflow with a little bit of something on top?
That's exactly what I was just going to ask, because you just spoke there about sort of putting it in a workflow and with this prompt provide these inputs. That's not AI to me. So perhaps
Yeah, I think where the AI comes in there is that it's generative within those prompts. So it's saying, get their email address, and if the end user gives a name instead of an email address, it can say, hey, I actually do need that email address. And it's the conversational experience where the AI is coming in very clear parameters, where it can just keep asking those questions. Think about for your technicians, how often do they have to ask the same question in a different way and call someone and then email them and then do something else? Like, that's where we have done the AI that's customer facing, so that it's not random, like, so that you can have the confidence is, yes, it is more workflow, and in the future it doesn't have to be. But today, to be confident in it, you do want the workflow, and then the AI is just that conversational experience. So you can turn that workflow on, and it's not a chatbot where it's like, I don't actually need this question, because if you tell an AI that question is not relevant to you, it can adjust. and it can ask why. And then maybe it's going down the wrong path and it can switch to a different path, or it can say, hey, a technician should jump in here. So yes, I mean, that's a fair point for sure of like, is that just workflows? It's partly workflows.
I mean, you talked a little bit about the trust there and how we can get different answers from this. What jumps into my mind is almost the Terminator films, where this is going to go rogue one day and it starts talking back in Chinese, or, it's almost like that rogue employee where they start to send an email with F word in there. And what we did as MSPs, we created email filtering tools that would pick up these bomb words and stop the email from going out.
Yeah.
Do we have anything that today that would create these compliance structures?
I just want to add to that with a little anecdote as well. When I was first sort of experimenting with AI in Halo, I was looking at fine tuning and that kind of stuff. And I thought I got it to a certain point.
Terminated.
It wasn't Terminator, but it was. I could see how it could have got there. I logged a ticket inside of Halo, and it replied thanking me for a lovely evening, and the dinner was really nice. And I was like, where has this come from? It has a mind of its own. And that's 2 steps away from shutting everything down. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think like one thing that is really cool that we do at Thread for testing is we create an end user and we create a technician that are both AI. And then we have a judge sitting on top of it.
Oh, God.
And we'll just run the workflow a million times. And then the judge will tell
So the judge is AI as well?
That's right.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and then it'll tell us what the outcomes are.
And then they just learn, they just develop their own language. And then before you know, it's like, what is this? They're speaking to each other in binary now.
That would be a risk there. You certainly have to keep the parameters around it. But I think that's why MSPs should work with vendors. Because an MSP shouldn't go do that, right? Like you shouldn't have technicians that are playing with an LLM as setting up those type of things. If you can focus on outcomes and you're like, I've tested this 15 times and the exact same thing or a similar thing that I'm okay with happened every time, then that goes back to, well, that vendor probably put good guardrails around it and tested a bunch, and these prompts are very specific. I think that's a lot of what it goes back to.
Yeah, you definitely don't want like 20 meals for tonight.
Yeah.
But the tickets are booked in for...
it was obviously a terrible prompt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything available today that would actually create compliance, that would watch what's going on and raise that as a concern? Because, what we're talking about here is doing these change requests, etc. Well, for all we know, we could have 100 change requests today for password resets, and there's supposed to be guardrails there to gain authority and check who the individual is to make sure we're not opening up the customer's information to someone we shouldn't. For all we know, those 100 tickets tomorrow could be handled badly and create that problem of we've now given X amount of people access to X amount of information just because they asked for it.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see that just being exasperated and things going very poorly. I think approvals are an important piece of it. If it's the end user approving it, if it's the technician approving it, just clicking a button and saying, having the whole history, look through the conversation, look through what the AI did. Does this check out? Is the sniff test there? Yeah. I also think sentiment analysis is something we're seeing. That if we talk about like where would an MSP start, triage, I think is number one. Sentiment analysis, there's a lot going on there. And I think sentiment analysis can be tweaked pretty easily to say like outcome analysis, or in the process, like, did this AI ticket look like it was supposed to? And then raise red flags or block it or stop it. I don't think there's a lot happening there today in the MSP space, but I think it's going to be very important.
And it's going to be AI powered, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be an AI that
watching the AI.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like your judge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look like ChatGPT have just brought projects out, haven't they? Where, that's sort of the new thing that they're doing, where you can have multiple AIs in a room that you ask the AI the question. And it basically answers you as if you're in a conference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to continue to just get easier to use. And there's ChatGPT alone, OpenAI is moving so quickly. There's more LLMs coming out. The average new employee you'll hire will have more experience with AI. Not too long from now, they'll have gone to high school just using AI, right?
Yeah, because that's the only reason why they actually passed the certificate. The qualifications are all now AI-based. That's right. The AI answered it.
And so when those types of people are coming into your business, like we go back to the training, well, that's something maybe they're training your team on, right? Is like, hey, I'm very familiar with AI. My whole life is AI. It's like, maybe showing someone how to use Spotify when they've never used Spotify before. So I think that's going to be really helpful between more people having experienced it, the tools being easier and having better outcomes. But then I really think the vendor just putting the guardrails on those things for the MSP. I'm super excited about all of those things happening together.
For sure. One question from me. I'm sure you hear this a lot. Why the pirate thing?
Yeah. We have a lot of sessions that we do with our team on this stuff. We typically start with like, we're not pirates. We obviously are pirates. You'll see me in a pirate costume.
Yeah. I see you at trade shows. You've all got Captain Morgan hats on.
Yeah, I am a pirate. But the reason that I say that is really we're rebels. That's where we want to start. Like when we say death to the ticket, we're trying to rebel against just like bad experiences. And you go back to who an MSP is, and they're typically a rebel of some sort, like the technician, the MSP owner. They started their own business. They thought they could do it better. Maybe they weren't the coolest in high school. I think there's a lot of that in this space. And one reason it's so communal is it's a lot of rebels and we're all in this together. And so that's really the core piece that we try to dig into. And we just cannot come up with a better way to show the rebel than a pirate.
That's
like,
pretty cool.
It was super fun to be a pirate too.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about the pirates, there's a book called Play Bigger that talks about category creation. And, we've branded ourselves as AI Service Desk. And we think about creating categories. It goes back to that rebel piece. And again, Play Bigger, like you'll see, we may have been heavily inspired by the pirates that they talk about in that book, of just how to create categories of things that are going to help not just MSPs, but in our situation, MSPs and those end users. But yeah, I mean, I say like I get to be a pirate. It's more fun to be a pirate than what I am when I'm not a pirate. But it really goes back to the rebel.
Do you think it allows you to be almost like a different person? So I've got someone who's a mentor at the minute around speaking and training to be speaking.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about him being a magician to start off with. So his confidence came from holding a pack of cards. So unless he had the pack of cards, he couldn't actually string a conversation together. But as soon as he had a pack of cards, he would talk to the audience and it wouldn't matter. Oh, wow. Even the nice ladies, he says, well, when he doesn't have the cards, he has no confidence at all. Do you think he does a little bit of that? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, part of it is just like, I can't be more ridiculous than I already am, right? Like no one can think I'm going to do something sillier than what I'm already doing. So it sets the bar pretty low. It makes it a lot easier. I'm probably going to talk on stage in a pirate costume less this year, right? We'll probably mature a little bit in some of those areas. But yeah, I love giving talks in a pirate costume. It definitely makes it easier. I mean, I don't know if there's an opportunity to bring the Halo way into that. Like, would you say the Halo way gets into like rebel and doing things different?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Halo's onboarding book is called Maverick. And that is what we are. We are a bunch of Mavericks. We are doing things differently. And it's exactly the same sentiment that you have there. It's find the blue ocean, right? There's so many red oceans out there and it's just oversaturated. Do things a little bit differently. Like I say, Maverick is our ethos. That is the Halo way. It is use your initiative. Don't follow the status quo because it's there. Make logical, common sense decisions and put the power into the people's hands. Unfortunately, Maverick doesn't talk about pirates or some specific theme. So we went with race suits, McLaren. And I mean, more recently, we sponsored Ipswich Town Football Club. So I think next up will just be a bunch of football shirts, which is fine by me.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think about like the Halo conference a few months ago, and there was a whole day where you just let a bunch of MSPs beat you up and say, we want this needs to work better. And obviously Halo is a great tool, but that was like a whole half a day, I think. And to me, it was like, yeah, these guys are rebels. Like you guys are so different in the space of just letting things like that happen.
Yeah. It's the difference between someone saying that in the room and me saying, we'll talk about that later, as opposed to someone saying that in a room and me replying to them in front of everyone. I'd like to think that, I instill some of Halo's values there around transparency and honesty, we're not perfect. No one is. But we listen to feedback and we're not afraid to hold our hands up and be honest. We're,
So yeah.
Well, I think going back to the Rebel piece, like when we launched our integration, we did it race car focused. We didn't bring pirates into it. And that was fine from our perspective because it was a Rebel. It's like we're doing this Rebel thing together. Now, it does get very old hearing the question, are you pilots? Are you pirates? What are you? When we do get outside of just the pirate thing.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think very similar sentiment and focus and outcomes that we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think the MSP industry are seeing that, and I think they like it, like you said.
Darren, is scaleUP going to have a costume or sponsor a football club or something?
We're going to have some skulls and things, and no, but I think it's very interesting though. And like your comment, I've always stood on sort of like, people make mistakes, companies make mistakes, and it's more about how do you listen to that and how do you answer that. And I think that's what makes a really good company. The ones that don't listen, that's the ones that fail, in my opinion. And I think there's a really strong message there around how do you get your message and your culture and your people to be aligned to that. And you guys have picked a really good focus there to achieve that.
Yeah, that should be the only focus. We said in perhaps our first scale-up episode about you focus on the people focus on the customer gives you the money. So it's that feedback loop. And yeah, so all Paul's concerned about, but his primary concern is us and making sure that we're empowered. And by virtue of doing that, myself, my colleagues are allowed to do great things.
Yeah. So we've had a great conversation here today, guys. For the audience, can we sort of summarize this? What's our 3 main takeaways of this discussion?
Yeah, I think one takeaway is if you are trying to figure out where to start with AI, think about triage. And even within triage, prioritizing tickets and then categorizing tickets. Give someone on your team that initiative. It'll make a huge impact on your business.
Great. And Morgan?
I would say sort of extending beyond that, have a long-term plan for how you're going to use AI in your business and how it can become profitable for you. I know I mentioned in one of the previous episodes that I'm somewhat of an AI skeptic, but whether I am or not is irrelevant to the fact that AI is here to stay, and it's going to be integral to the way that technology functions moving forward. So to make sure that you're on top of your game and ahead of the curve, start thinking about that 3-year plan now.
I think for me, just to build actually on top of those 2 points, is there are lots of options out there, and those options are only going to get greater. So I think you need to start with what's the value today? What do our customers look like? What's our structure look like? And actually what's going to meet that expectation the best, rather than saying, right, we're going to evaluate X volume of tools and try and work that in. I think you need to start off with what do you want to achieve in the next 12 months, and then find the right vendors, partners, tools to achieve that. So to wrap this up, Bobby, what would you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us today. We all would love to connect a ton more on the future of AI and how to get started today. Feel free to find us on LinkedIn. I have a pirate hat on. These guys are pretty easy to find too. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of scaleUP, don't forget to like and subscribe. If there are any topics that you would like to see on a future episode of scaleUP, please leave a comment below.